Hello, everyone. Dr. Mad here. Let's get mad about Macbeth. So, in this video, we're going to look at Act 2, Scene 1. And the summary is that Banquo and Fleance are out for a walk in the evening. So, Fleance is Banquo's son, young son. He's a boy. Macbeth enters, and he and Banquo talk briefly. Macbeth sees an imaginary dagger and thinks about the killing. He makes up his mind to commit the murder. Now, this is a short but critical scene with one of the most famous scenes in literature. So let's listen to it first of all.
How goes the night, boy?
The moon is down. I have not heard the clock.
And she goes down at 12.
I take 'tis later, sir.
Hold. Take my sword.
Sir?
There's husbandry in heaven. Their candles are all out. Take thee that too. A heavy summons lies like lead upon me. And yet I would not sleep. Merciful powers, restrain in me the cursed thoughts that nature gives way to in repose. Give me my sword. Who's there?
A friend.
What, sir? Not yet at rest? The king's abed? He hath been in unusual pleasure, and sent forth great largesse to your offices. This diamond he greets your wife withal, by the name of most kind hostess, and shut up in measureless content.
Being unprepared, our will became the servant to defect, which else should free have wrought?
All's well. I dreamt last night of the three weird sisters. To you they have showed some truth.
I think not of them. Yet when we can entreat an hour to serve, we would spend it in some words upon that business, if you would grant the time.
At your kindest leisure.
If you shall cleave to my consent when 'tis, it shall make honor for you.
So I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchised and allegiance clear. I shall be counselled.
Good repose the while.
Thanks, sir. The like to you.
Go bid thy mistress, when my drink is ready, she strike upon the bell. Get thee to bed, my lord. Is this a dagger which I see before me? The handle toward my hand. Come, let me clutch thee. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. Art thou not, fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat-oppressed brain? I see thee yet, in form as palpable as this which now I draw. Thou marshalledst me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. I see thee still, and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. Now o'er the one-half world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings, and withered murder. Alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, whose howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace, with Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design, moves like a ghost. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it.
Whiles I threat, he lives. Words to the heat of deeds, too cold breath gives. I go, and it is done. The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell which summons thee to heaven or to hell.
Okay, so I hope you enjoyed listening to that scene. So there's a summary. You can pause the video and read that again if you want to. But now let's just go through the scene line by line. So Act 2, Scene 1, Court of Macbeth's Castle. Enter Banquo and Fleance bearing a torch before him. So remember, Fleance is the son of Banquo, and Banquo speaks. I mean, this first bit is not that important. It's just Shakespeare is just setting up the scene. How goes the night, boy? That's fairly straightforward. The moon is down. I've not heard the clock. Fleance says, I don't know what time it is. Banquo says, goes down at 12, so it must be 12 o'clock. And then this line is a bit ambiguous, actually, but we don't need to worry about it. They're really just talking. Hold, take my sword. There's husbandry in heaven. So this means that it's dark. There's no moon or whatever. The candles are all out. So the stars, there's no stars. Take that too. And he hands him something. We're not sure what. A heavy summons lies like lead upon me, and yet I would not sleep. So he's saying he's sleepy, but he doesn't want to sleep. Merciful powers, restrain in me the cursed thoughts that nature gives way to in repose. So basically, he's obviously thinking about the witches and all the things that have happened, and those things are making it difficult for him to sleep. And you can see that he's quite tense because when Macbeth enters and a servant with a torch, obviously it's dark, so Macbeth doesn't know who it is. So he says, "Give me my sword." Who's there? So he's quite tense and nervous. And Macbeth says, "A friend." And Banquo relaxes and says, "Oh, what's not yet at rest? Are you not sleeping yet?" The king's asleep in bed. He's he's very unhappy. Sorry, he's very happy at the moment. He has been in unusual pleasure. So he's very happy at the moment because of winning the battle. He's happy with Macbeth and so on. And he's, as one of the thank yous, he's given his wife, Macbeth's wife, a diamond. And then this bit here, you don't need to worry too much about it. He's just saying that he was unprepared for King Duncan's arrival and wasn't able to look after him as well as he would have liked. Banquo says, "All's well. I dreamt last night of the three weird sisters. To you, they have showed some truth." So this line just means, oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure King Duncan won't mind or won't have noticed. Now, this is where it gets a bit more important. So Banquo says, "I dreamt about the witches," and he says to Macbeth that some of the things they said to you have turned out correctly. Now, Macbeth says, "I think not of them." Do you think that's true? Do you think he's not thinking of them? I think not of them. Well, he's obviously lying, isn't he? So again, that theme of appearance and reality. And you can see he's lying because then he says, "Yet when we can entreat an hour to serve, we would spend it in some words upon that business, if you would grant the time." He's saying, "I would like to talk to you when we have a bit more time about that business." So why would he want to talk about it if he's not thinking of them? And Banquo says, "Yep, whenever you want to." And Macbeth says, "Yes, if you kind of talk with me or if you kind of agree with what I'm thinking, it'll be good for you." And Banquo says, "Well, as long as my so this line here, so I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep my bosom franchised and allegiance clear, I shall be cancelled. He's saying, I will listen to you, but my allegiance is clear. So allegiance means loyalty. So who is he saying that he's loyal to? He's saying that he's loyal to King Duncan. So you can see that Banquo hasn't changed. He also had a prophecy that his sons would be king, but it hasn't turned him bad. He hasn't thought about killing the king or anything. So Banquo is what we call the foil to Macbeth. So foil means kind of like the opposite. Okay. So Shakespeare is showing that there was no reason for Macbeth to change, to go bad. He must have had badness in him because Banquo and Macbeth both had prophecies, and Banquo has just as much reason, in fact, more so, kill Duncan than Macbeth does. Okay, but he doesn't. He stays loyal. He stays principled. And Macbeth says, okay, have a good sleep until then. Banquo says, thanks, sir, the like to you, the same to you. And Banquo and Fleance exit. And Macbeth, so there's a servant nearby, says, go bid thy mistress, when my drink is ready, she strike upon the bell, get thee to bed. So he says, tell Lady Macbeth that when my drink is ready, my nightcap, if you like, she should ring the bell. So this isn't really important. Exit servant. And now this lovely speech comes up. Is this a dagger which I see before me, the handle toward my hand? So here we have a rhetorical question. Dagger means knife. And the point about this handle being towards him means that it's kind of inviting him. Okay? Come, let me clutch thee. So clutch means to hold. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. So he tries to get hold of the knife, but obviously it's not there. It's a hallucination. Okay? Hallucination is something that you see, but that isn't really there. And the point is that the thought of killing the king has made him mentally and physically ill because hallucinations are a serious medical condition. If you see things that are not there, that is really, really serious. I have thee not, and yet I see thee still. So he tries to hold it. He can't because obviously it's not there, but he still sees it. Art thou not fatal vision, sensible to feeling as to sight? So he's saying, he's talking to the knife, and he's saying, are you not something that can be touched? Are you not physical? So this word fatal is important because obviously fatal means leading to death. Okay. So obviously knives can be used to kill. And in this case, it's going to be used to kill King Duncan. Or art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain? So here we can see confirmation that he is physically ill. He's on a fever, but he's not ill. He hasn't actually got any kind of an illness. He hasn't got he hasn't actually got like a virus or something. Okay, it's purely the thought of killing the king which has given him a fever and therefore given rise to these hallucinations. I see thee yet in form as palpable as this which now I draw. So palpable means able to be felt. And what he's doing here, he's pulling out an actual knife. Okay. So remember, he's a soldier. He's always armed. So remember, Macbeth is a play. You should refer to it as a play in your essays. And you can also talk about how things would look on stage. And if you can do that and show your understanding that it's a play, then that actually does get you marks. Okay. It's the assessment objective of form, language, form, and structure. So form means type. And if you can show that you understand it's a play, then that gets you extra marks. Though marshalest me the way that I was going, and such an instrument I was to use. So he's saying the hallucination is kind of guiding him to do the deed because I was going to use a knife anyway. And obviously, the fact that he sees the knife is because it's a bit like a dream, isn't it? That whatever you're thinking comes out in your dreams or your hallucinations. Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest. So that line's a bit confusing, but don't worry too much about it. Basically, it's just saying that his eyes are fooling him. He's seeing things which are not there. I see thee still. Now notice this repetition of I see thee still. I see thee yet. Yeah? Look here, I see thee still. Why do you think Shakespeare makes him repeat this? And the answer is that is to emphasize that he really is seeing the knife. Okay? Not that it's there, but he's seeing it. In other words, it's not just a trick of the light, it's not something accidental. So back in those days, and here's a bit of context, there wouldn't have been much light. Yeah, obviously they didn't have electricity. So Shakespeare wants to make it clear that this is just something that maybe it's a bit dark and he's got confused and he's seen something that looks like a knife. He wants to make it clear he's actually seeing this knife even though it's not there. Okay, so and on thy blade and dudgeon gouts of blood, which was not so before. And now he's seeing on the blade of the knife, and dudgeon means handle. He's starting to see huge amounts of blood, which were not there. So what does that mean? I suppose it means that it's kind of confirming to him that he is going to do the deed. It's kind of he's convincing himself, if you like, okay? There's no such thing. It is the bloody business which informs thus to mine eyes. So here he's starting to realize that this hallucination is being caused by him thinking about killing the king. Now the one half world, nature seems dead, and wicked dreams abuse the curtained sleep. So what he's saying here is that obviously in 24 hours, half the world is sleeping as the earth turns, and the other half is awake. So, and he's saying that when you're thinking of doing something bad, you will get these wicked dreams which will disrupt your sleep. Witchcraft celebrates pale Hecate's offerings and withered murder, alarmed by his sentinel, the wolf, who howls his watch, thus with his stealthy pace. Now, we're not going to write too much about these lines. This is where Shakespeare becomes very poetic, as always. But just notice, so pale Hecate is the goddess of witchcraft, makes a brief appearance in the play. Don't worry too much about all this. But we'll have a look at this line here. With Tarquin's ravishing strides towards his design moves like a ghost. So Tarquin was a king of ancient Rome, and he wasn't a very good king. He did some terrible things, including raping a woman. So Macbeth can see that he's kind of similar. Obviously, in his case, he's going to kill King Duncan. Tarquin committed a rape. So both of those things are the worst things that human beings can do. One important point we can make here, if you're aiming for those higher grade 7 and above, is that this reference to Rome. So Shakespeare gets his imagery from three main sources: the Bible, ancient Greek history, and ancient Roman history. Okay, and here's an example from ancient Roman history. Thou sure and firm set earth, hear not my steps, which way they walk, for fear thy very stones prate of my whereabout, and take the present horror from the time which now suits with it. So again, lots of poetry there. He's basically talking to the earth. Do you remember that the word for that, the technique for that? It's a high level technique. It's called apostrophe, not the punctuation mark, but the technique of apostrophe when you talk to an object or someone who's not there. So in this case, an object, the earth. And he's saying, don't listen to me in case you talk and give away what I'm going to do. Whiles I threat he lives, worse to the heat of these too cold breath gives. So here, it's just a poetic way of saying that Macbeth is now coming to the point where he's going to make up his mind, and he's saying, "Oh, I'm all talk. I'm just talking. I'm just threatening. I'm not doing anything." Okay, and then a bell rings, and it's that as though the bell finally makes up his mind. I go and it is done. Yeah, he has decided he's going to do the deed. The bell invites me. Well, not really. The bell is not a living thing. It can't invite him. It's more like he's inviting himself. He uses the bell as a sign to change his to be finally convinced. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell. So knell is a bell rung at death. So that connection is obvious. And notice these last two lines, knell and hell, they rhyme. What do we call that? A rhyming couplet. Why does Shakespeare do that? Do you remember? It's to kind of signal the end of the scene to the audience, to the other characters. Okay, so hopefully that was useful, going through that scene line by line. Here are the key quotations. I won't read them out. You can read them yourselves. And have a look at these questions. So we talked about this question. I explained all this. Okay, so you should be able to answer them fairly easily. If you can't, you need to go back and listen to the video before you look at the answers. So you should pause the video now. I'm going to move to the next slide. So there are your answers, brief answers for the next scene.